Hi, I'm Fred Satilli. This is episode 26 of the Voters Union of Accountability Nation podcast. And this episode is called Say No to Suicide. But before I get into any of that, I just have something that's tipping me over. And that is, I keep seeing and hearing on the news that there's vote counting going on. Vote counting. They want to count the votes. They want to find out if the votes are legitimate and count them. We have a party that conducted a fraudulent election. Everything they did was bad. The one party did nothing to make complications. The other party did a really lot to make complications, and they made a big mess of everything. And they conducted all kind of fraud in all kind of ways, whether it was voter fraud, election machine fraud. That they brought in things that they knew were broken and corrupt, and they actually brought in a computer program that was made to switch votes in an election. And somehow somebody thinks that they're going to give the guy at the top of this food chain the office of the presidency. I don't see how, once you show that all these bad things were done, how can you turn again and say, well then, but you're gonna win anyway? I mean, this whole thing should be nullified. This whole thing should just be, this is a gigantic, I have one friend who calls it the big reveal. I mean, these guys want to crush the economy by making a giant quarantine across the country the minute they get in office and raise taxes and all this horrible stuff. And yet, it seems that there are no adults. It seems that there are, if I was caught cheating by my father, he would make me make reparations to the person who I cheated. I would have to say, I'm sorry I cheated you. I shouldn't have done that. It was a really bad thing that I did. How can I make it right? And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to support you in any way I can. I'm going to take care of you in any way I can. I'm going to do whatever I can to humbly, and with contrition, make this right. The left in this country, with their burning down cities and all their crazy stuff, has got to become contrite, and they've got to be, if they can't be sincere, they still have to make the reparations. They ought to be forced to build the cities back at their own expense. Anyway, I don't understand this counting the votes. The election is a sham. The election was corrupted, and it was corrupted by one of the people on one of the side. They should just be declared the loser. I know if I cheated anybody, my dad would have declared me the loser, and I would have had hell to pay for that, and the left and all these people who did all this stuff, they should have hell to pay for it too. So I'm sorry I started, with a just something that's I just can't stand watching the news and seeing this constant vote count story, because the vote count is immaterial. The cheaters were caught. There's a mountain of evidence. There's a history of evidence. There's a system of fraud. It's more than systemic. It's been done internationally. It's not that the party here in America tried to sneak in. They were supported internationally, and the other side is not. So you really do have a virtue, and you really do have a sinister, and you can call it good and evil. You can call it the better nature of man against the worst nature of man. Characterize it any way you like. Shame on them. And vote count, don't make me laugh. Okay, and no, they're not making me laugh. They're making me raise my voice, which is never a good way to talk about anything. So what I do want to talk about first is I take a great deal of pride in the fact that my book, Oregonism, has received a 5-star review on Amazon, the first one, hopefully of many, and the review was, I knew this was an important book about politics when I bought it, but I fell in love with it because in the end, it was a love story. And that review is as a little strange as it may be, is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to convey a story without lecturing. I wanted to make the story accessible without creating a how-to book, how to do this. So, in short, people are going to get the idea. They're going to learn the idea, albeit slowly. They'll still get it, and that's the important part. The analogy I always make is the Communist Manifesto. When the Communist Manifesto was written, people looked at it and they said, look, we're going to take over the entire media and we're going to take over the entire education system. I don't think so. This is not a good book, Mr. Karl Marx. Your idea is goofy. And look where we are now, right? So as impossible as that might have seemed all the way back then, 100 years ago, way more than 100 years ago, the idea was learned, it was adopted, it was modified, it's been tried, and I hope my idea is a hell of a lot better than that. Communism has had no success, but I believe the ideas put forth in Oregonism will have terrific success when they're finally tried. And so we need to gather the voters' union and try this idea if we ever want to have an accountability nation. And I know most of you listening want accountability, so I hope that you'll get it, you'll learn it, you'll understand it, and be one of the few, the proud, and because we're going to need a cast of thousands to pull this off. Now, on to the next topic. I spoke to the Eagle Forum last week with a very good outcome. And for those of you who may have watched that on the video, because it was recorded by the incredible Dennis Whipple, he did a great job, and I was able to upload it to YouTube last week. I was very proud of that. And I was very well received by those folks, the people at the Eagle Forum. And as I looked at Gloria Prine, who invited me to appear there, Gloria and my mother are the same age. And my mother is in a nursing home and very dependent. And Gloria is magnificently not. She is incredibly strong, and at her age really should receive some kind of lifetime achievement award. She's a spectacular patriot to press on. She's far past retirement age and could easily hand over the reins, but there doesn't seem to be anybody quite willing to take those reins. And the Eagle Forum of Orange County is a very large and linked community of like-minded people. And Gloria is largely responsible for keeping those people together. I pray that at her age, I can be important, as important to my community as she is to hers. She's really impressive. And just on a side note, Orleen Curley, who's the state director of the Eagle Forum, is in equal condition. She's up in years, but she's publishing a new book, and I think it's her 10th or 11th maybe, and she still drives hard. And it brings me to my appearance at the Eagle Forum, which I was there to talk about suicide. And suicide is kind of a untreated condition. It always has been. There are people who are aware of it, but there's really no national recognition of suicide. And right now, we have a real serious growing problem with it because of the Wuhan flu. I took an antihistamine for hay fever. I didn't want to be sneezing throughout this because God forbid you sneeze, but it's made my mouth real dry and I'm having difficulty saying the words, So if I seem a little puckery, that's the reason. Anyway, I want to take a side note here again. This is kind of a broken up broadcast, but I want to take a side note here to go on record to saying that I vehemently resent anyone who calls the disease that was sent here to collapse our economy the COVID. The COVID is a euphemism created to divert attention from the enemy that created it. It's been instituted and adopted by virtually everybody, almost as if by a media conspiracy, because it's to the far left, to the far right. Everybody has seemed to want to agree to call it this. Even the most hardcore truth sayers talk about the COVID, which shields the enemy who sent this asymmetrical biological weapon around the world. To me, use of the word COVID is an obscenity. It's a compliance with an agenda of which I strongly disagree. So that's my statement on that. I'm sorry that I have to kind of say this, but I'm hurt every time someone says the word. It's viscerally, it's like, why are you complying with them? And I hear it at every level, and it's disgusting to me. So anyway, I just wanted to have that on record before I proceed. So I'm going to bring it back now down to suicide. And one of the real big reasons for suicide is hopelessness. And a great many times that hopelessness comes from parental alienation. Parents being alienated from their children and children being alienated from their parents. And this is why we have the organization AFAAP, Amnesty for Alienated American Parents. That's AFAAPaction.org, which is the website. Now, right now, most Americans are being affected by social alienation. So where parental alienation used to be kind of specialized, now the entire society has social alienation. And I'm seeing this from friends and acquaintances alike. People are desperate for company. People are desperate to go do something. There's nothing to do. The sports are closed. Music is closed. All kind of places are closed, restricting what you can do. You try to go places, but you can't. You end up stuck at home, and it's beginning to really affect people. I mentioned about Gloria Prine and how my mother is in a assisted living, a senior assisted living home, a nursing home. And one of the reasons 3 years ago that it was wise for her to go there was because of socialization. She was living with me and I was doing my best to take care of her, but I would go off all day or sometimes all weekend or for any number of days. I had a life too, and I did things. I had meetings and I had all kind of things to do. And I would leave her alone and I'd come home and she'd say, I haven't eaten or had a medication in 11 hours. Or she would have some other kind of need that wasn't fulfilled. And it was pretty awful. So at a certain point, it became clear that not only would she have hourly attention, but she'd be able to socialize with all these nice people. There are 50 people in her residence, and some of them are like really cool people. Some of them are adorable. Some of them are, chatty and clever, and they have stories to tell you. And I wanted her to interact with people, not be isolated in the house with me, almost like a prisoner, So now they're not allowing anybody to go to the nursing home. And these seniors, you can go, I can go and visit with my mom with a mask, with her with a mask, in the lobby for like 20 minutes. All the rest of these people they're not socializing with each other. It's not that I go. She used to be able to, they had these giant bingo parties of 30 people showing up and they'd all laugh and, curse and everything, whatever they, you know how bingo is. And they had all these sing-alongs, performers came in, I mean, all the time, once or twice a week. some folk singer would come in and sing they'd be singing like John Denver songs or, things like that. And stuff that the old people knew. So, you know, people need socialization. It's literally abusive to isolate somebody. They have in prison solitary confinement and the people go insane. And I'm starting to see this insanity. I'm starting to see people who are desperate, for attention, and they're desperate just for socialization. And that's a terrible way to be, I can tell you. I mean, it's really a serious thing. So this hopelessness and the fear that it generates, that you're going to, die alone, or that you're alone, you're looking over your shoulder, you're not sure what's going on, the uncertainty, it's all part of the asymmetric warfare that's an element of the Wuhan flu. People, we have to fight this. We have to fight this. We can't, it's not the cute little COVID. This is a weapon of war. Make no mistake about it. Well, a lot of people ask me, well, what can I do? It's such a common question. And there's a really easy answer. We are building a team of people to put a stop to these reasons for suicide. The AFAAP the idea is to stop suicide, parental alienation, and the children committing suicide because they're alienated, the parents committing suicide because they're alienated, to stop hopelessness. And it's really, really simple, especially now, because people want to meet other people and see other people. What I want every one of you to do is to tell one person about this alienation problem and this suicide problem, especially if you have military in your family. Tell them about Fred Satilli, contact me, and make an appointment that I will come and tell them about the AFAAP and what we're doing to approach the government with legislation to combat the suicide problem. Don't just tell military in your family. Some of you don't have it, but most of you have a pastor or a priest or a rabbi. Make an appointment with that person to meet with me. I'll wear a mask. I'll go to their place. I want them to know about our effort. Another group of people, there's all kinds of hobbies. You tell your music teacher, your golf instructor, your tennis. An ideal one would be a gun shop owner. Gun shop owners, they don't want anybody using a firearm for suicide, and they're going to really want to be behind this. So tell your gun shop owner. Another huge person that should really be interested in this, it's a health issue. Tell your doctor. Tell your doctor and your doctor's staff. There's a guy who's trying to prevent suicide. If you want to give them the website, afaapaction.org, that's one thing, but go further. Make an appointment with them to meet me, especially if it's a psychologist or a psychiatrist, because as you saw in the last video, our path to the White House is through psychology and psychiatry, okay? Tax season comes up, tell your accountant. Here's who you really need to tell is your congressman. Your state assembly person, your state senate person, don't bother with Kamala Harris, she's a lost cause, but everybody else, contact your local politician. Sheriff would be huge, right? Make it tight. You got to meet Fred Satilli. He wants to stop suicide, especially among veterans. These veterans with PTSD who come back from overseas and they're all shook up and they find out that they can't see their kids because some liberal judge has given a restraining order. They become hopeless. They become bankrupt. Their life is destroyed and they kill themselves. So we need everybody. We need to grow awareness for this problem. So I've given you the website. Oregonism. I'm telling you, it's our path to beat China. We have to beat China. We have to get politicians who aren't invested and paid by China. We're Americans. We need to make America our home. We don't need to have a landlord from over the Pacific Ocean moving its tentacles into our life. The only way we're going to get politicians that are already corrupted out is through the methods described in this book. And just as I said, I will meet with people on behalf of this suicide issue. I will also be happy to meet with people who want to learn how to remove an incumbent from office. I'm Fred Satilli. This is the Voters Union of Accountability Nation. I really appreciate you listening to me on the podcast or watching me on YouTube. Obviously, I want you to share this video, right? And we need to bring people in a major way. That meeting at the Eagle Forum was phenomenal. A lot of book sales were generated, and that means people are going to start to learn this. And 3 pages of people signed up in support of the anti-suicide program described by the AFAAP. So I'm happy, I'm proud, and I appreciate you. Once again, I guess I'm repeating myself. I appreciate you watching and listening. Thanks again, and I'll speak with you again soon.